In week 3 of the NFL, it's time for teams who shouldn't be 3-0, old-fashioned ice cream brands, and good old-fashioned banter. The Snap UK.
Welcome to the Snap UK podcast, the home of NFL debate and opinion from the UK. My name is Johnny Fash and we are recording from Shea 4th and Inches this week, so be prepared for potential kitten chaos. Joining me on the show, the aforementioned Mr. Inches, G-Lo and Griff. No Jimmy G this week as he's too busy shotgunning Smirnoff Ices in Ireland, like you do. At nearly 40.
He is nearly 40.
He looks it as well. I don't know why you look so surprised.
I forget that we're almost there. Yeah,
no, we're not.
40 years old, isn't that a half marathon?
That's about what he can manage, apparently, yeah.
Anyway, week 3 is in the bag and plenty to discuss, starting with, for the second week in a row, the Giants, who debuted Daniel Jones against the Bucks and snatched themselves a 32 to 31 points victory to move to an astounding 1-2 for the season.
Still in the playoff hunt.
Yeah.
Division.
Well, what did we make of this one?
What we made of this one is, all of a sudden, the Giants look like they've got an entire playbook to use because your quarterback can do most things that other teams can already do. This one's got legs. I mean, seriously,
the other one's got 2 rings. Don't forget that, okay?
Daniel Jones looked really good. No Giants quarterback has had 2 rushing and 2 passing touchdowns in 50 years in the same game.
No rookie has done that.
That's insane.
Ever.
That's just been Eli, though, hasn't it, for the last 50 years?
It's just absolutely nuts that you waited so long and then this guy. All right, Bucks defense, but Bucks defense has actually been all right this year. If Daniel Jones could play on your defense, your team would stand a chance. But once again, Janoris Jenkins and co. poor would be the best way to sum it up. But
I don't think they were that poor. I think Jameis realised, wait a second, I've got Mike Evans here. I've got that 1,000-yard receiver I've had for the last 4 years.
Yeah, but when Jameis Winston can pick you apart like that, that's bad. He picked on your secondary like it was us four.
Your secondary is poor.
No, I'm not saying our secondary is good.
Let's be positive. Daniel Jones looked worlds apart from Eli Manning. Apart from actually looking like Eli Manning, his performance was everything you could have possibly hoped for.
Well, yeah. He didn't turn the ball over, did he? He ran in 2 touchdowns. He threw for 2 touchdowns. The second
rushing touchdown was like the parting of the Red Sea.
It was lovely,
and yet Eli would have stood there for another 3 or 4 seconds holding onto the ball thinking, where do I throw this to? And then probably just giving it to the other team.
Yeah, obviously he's going to have a bit of a honeymoon period. Every new quarterback does, especially if you're a first-round quarterback with some level of talent around you. It'll be interesting to see how he gets on next week with no Saquon. I think that's a huge question mark because, obviously there's going to be the backup running back that will come in, but it's not the same, is it? Saquon is
Wayne Gorman.
We'll come on to him later when it comes to people you potentially pick up in fantasy books. He'll get some workload with a new quarterback, but is he going to be the same as Saquon? Does that change how defenses line up?
Yeah, they won't have to stack the box, which means they can try and cut some of the passing lanes down. But at the same time, Sterling Shepard suddenly looked like a proper wide receiver number 1. Evan Ingram is also playing like a wide receiver number 1 from tight end. And now you've got a guy who can find them both. So, all right, yes, teams aren't going to have to stack the box, but at least you've got a quarterback who looks capable. I mean, if he manages to get the Giants to somewhere within the region of a 500 record over the course of this season, then he won't look out of place as a number 6 pick.
That is not going to happen.
No, but I'm talking 6 and 10 or 7 and 9. If he manages that,
that's not going to happen either.
I'm not sure. I'm not so sure. Once they get Saquon back, the only thing holding them back, if you look at it on that performance, is the fact that you've gained a quarterback and lost your running back all in the same game.
From week 5 we get Golden Tate back, so that's another receiving option who's half decent.
Yep. I mean, he's going to certainly mean he's got to be covered, which means then you're one-on-one with Sterling Shepard, Golden Tate, and Evan Ingram. Those 3 could get into half the teams in the league, couldn't they? So I don't think that's a problem. I'm still not convinced by the O-line, but it did a reasonable enough job. And the knock on Daniel Jones had been the fumbling issue. And I think he fumbled twice in this game. But That's a new quarterback thing. They all do that because they're trying to read the field whilst receiving the ball. And
I reckon the Giants can win 3 of the next 10 games.
all right, so that's 4 and 12.
That's why we said they were going to be at the beginning of the season.
I reckon they could do
They
that.
might win one more. Might win one more. They play the Dolphins as well, but so they might win one more. So maybe 5 and 11.
And how many of those would they have won with Eli?
3.
Yeah, I don't think it's that many. Eli was a statue compared to Daniel Jones.
He was, but they're playing some. You haven't got the hardest schedule actually this year. You play the Redskins twice. Obviously, you've got the Dolphins. You've got the Cardinals. You've got the Jets. So, you've got some poor teams to play. So they're quite lucky there. I think if you were playing in a different schedule, you could easily still be saying 2 or 3 wins. I don't think that you can say that this team's addressed enough of their issues because they've found. And I know a quarterback makes a huge difference, but I still think a lot of teams will just tear this team apart, and Daniel Jones won't be able to keep up because I still think this team will concede 30 to 35
he can't play
points.
cornerback, which is a problem for them. I agree, but it certainly gives the rest of the team something to fight for. Now they actually have a quarterback who's worth playing for, because that must make a difference. It must do. You can't tell me it doesn't.
Well, yeah, if we'd have had it last year, we might still have had Beckham.
You two must be pleased though, as Giants fans. You must be delighted that he didn't turn up and crap the bed.
It's nice to see that his
Paul Statter in a Manning shirt.
his one game he's played so far was half decent. It's been one game.
I can
After
go
one
outside
game,
the Giants.
Andy Dalton was the top performing quarterback. So let's give him maybe 3 games.
Look the other way though. After one game, Nate Peterman was the worst quarterback we'd ever seen.
Oh yeah,
I think it's about season, isn't it? Jimmy G. If you even look at Jimmy G as a comparison, everyone's saying now he needs a full season before he can be judged. So, he's made some mistakes at the start of this year. He's had other times at the back end of, a year and a half ago where he looked great. He looked good at the Patriots, but he needs a full season till he can be judged.
Yeah.
This guy's going to be the same. Jared Goff was the same when he came in and played 6 games at the end of his first season. Nobody judged anything, and then it was when he had a first full season. So, until you give the guy a first full season, we're not going to know. I think the Saquon issue is a bigger issue than people are making out. I don't think there's enough talent at wide receiver around him for the next 5 weeks, and I think the defense will give up too many points, which is why he might make them closer and more competitive. They might be more interesting to watch, and you might get some more fantasy points out of them, but I don't think they'll win a heap load more games. That's just me being normally pessimistic.
I don't have an issue. I agree with everything you say, but I'm excited watching the Giants for next week. And as a Giants fan, I can't really tell you the last time I was excited.
The playoff game where we shut the bed was.
You and Paul together?
No.
Why were you two sharing a bed?
No,
We missed that
was
bit.
it? Who did we? Was it the Cowboys who thrashed us last time we were in the playoffs?
I don't.
We were in the playoffs once.
Remember when
so long ago.
it was when they all took the photo on the boat.
Oh yeah. Was it? It might have been
That was the Cowboys.
Was that 2016?
Yeah, maybe
Or 2015?
No, 2015.
It was a long time ago. So long ago that camera probably had to
First year
be taking
of
a Kodak.
McAdoo.
Oh, 2016.
Before he went and slicked his hair back and then got fired.
Before he became evil McAdoo.
Did you see the stat regarding Giants and 18-point comeback victories?
Nope.
How many times did Eli come back from 18-point deficits in 44 games?
I'm guessing it's going to be either none or one.
It's none.
Yeah.
No times in his career was he 18 points behind and you won. And Daniel Jones did it first game up. Now, we will cross the pitch here and talk about Bruce Arians and the reason why you actually won the game, which was the decision to take a 5-yard delay of game penalty on a 27 or 29-yard field goal to move it back because he felt his kicker was better from 34 yards. And the kicker then missed. And it missed by 2 yards. So if they'd have just taken it from where it was originally, it probably would have gone through. And that is why you lost. This kicker was taken in the 4th round.
We won.
Sorry, it's probably why you won and they lost. Matt Gay has now missed 2 fairly easy extra points in that game and the field goal.
Kicking's been terrible this year, just generally, hasn't it?
It has been awful, yeah. But this is a team that 2 years ago, drafted Roberto Aguayo, and he was awful. And now they've drafted this guy, and he doesn't look like the answer. So is this going to cost the Bucs again? Because I really wanted Bruce Arians to be successful, but they are just a very average team. Jameis isn't as terrible as I thought after 3 weeks, but the team are making some fundamentally bad
it's
mistakes.
not like
That's 3 weeks. It's 3 weeks in.
It's not like the Bears or the
3 weeks
Chargers
is
last
enough.
year who were up there and it was kicking that could have cost them. The Bucs are toilet, and the kicker is not going to cost. They're costing this game, but
they would be
the
top.
season?
They would be top of their division after 3 games.
after three
but,
games.
but they would be top, and instead I think they're bottom.
They were top after 2 games.
Yeah.
yeah.
So now they're bottom.
And
So
I think what they're in is
After 3
a
games.
very, very good division where some of the key players have got injured,
Yeah.
which has falsely made them look like they might be competitive in that division, which they're not really. They haven't really strengthened. Yeah, they've strengthened the defensive line a bit, and the offensive line as well. So I think they have made improvements to that team. But that division is a really tough division, isn't it?
I'm not sure now with the way things are going to go. And
Well,
we'll get to it. It should be. It should be.
It has been.
But this is my point. Like, while we know Breeze is out and Cam are out, the Bucs have got to be winning this game with these 3 kicks that have all been missed. These are their opportunities earlier in the season before they play these divisional opponents when they've got their quarterbacks back in starting lineup. So I think this makes a big difference. This could potentially cost someone's job because of a decision to move 5 yards back. It seems like a daft thing to do. That doesn't demonstrate confidence in your kicker. That demonstrates confusion over what you're really trying to achieve. It seemed like an odd one to me. So Saquon, so out 4 to 8 weeks, high ankle sprain. You'll have Wayne Gallman. Gary's already said he's going to mention that in the fantasy later. What do you think Daniel Jones does for the rest of the Giants' fantasy values? So I'm talking Sterling Shepard, who I drafted and then immediately dropped because I regretted my decision. Evan Ingram, who is one of the best 5 tight ends in
He
the
is
league.
number 1 at the moment
Is he?
on fantasy.
Well,
he is
there you
number
go.
1. He's averaging just over 20 points a game.
That's pretty good. And you'd imagine that's only going to go up because new quarterbacks always favour the tight ends.
Yep. No, I think it adds a lot of value.
Yep.
And I think, the running back, I'm going to tell you to pick him up, if you haven't got a decent RB1 because, with bye weeks coming up, you're going to need that flex there to move on that. So I'd definitely pick him up if you're short of that position. And then, I think it adds value because they will have more possession of the ball. They will complete more first downs. So that means there will be more targets in PPR. So I think certainly they are more value now. Most of the season, most people would have been staying away from Miami players, Giants players, Redskins players because generally they're not giving a lot of value back. I think that will change slightly, but I still probably think we're going to have to wait and see who his favourite targets develop to be. But there's going to be 2 or 3 players in the Giants team that will be able to get you some points rather than none. Well, 1. It was Saquon. Yeah. Or 2 with the tight end.
Yeah. Well, should we move on? So, from one New York team to another who was starting their 3rd different quarterback in 3 games. The Jets lost 30-14 in Foxborough, and I think that flatters the Jets.
So the Patriots' defence still hasn't given up an offensive touchdown since the AFC Championship game because this was a pick 6 from Jarrett Stidham, who came in to relieve Brady and was immediately kicked back out of the game by Belichick for doing that, and a muffed punt that was recovered for a score.
From the guy who doesn't usually punt
because
return.
Edelman was out with a chest injury, but they're saying it's nothing serious and he'll be back. So the guy had one job. I can't even remember his name.
Olszewski.
He had one job, and he
muffed it.
That was an enormous muff. That was ridiculous. That was a 70s style. It was bonkers. Now, let's talk about the Jets. Luke Falk. What the Falk was that? It was pretty awful. What did he get? About 90 yards passing. At one point, I think they had 6 offensive yards at the end of the first quarter. It was bad. Like I say, the defense for the Patriots is amazing. The Jets, I thought, were going to go and fighting for second in this division. They're going to be fighting to not be bottom. Mono, isn't it, with Sam Darnold?
Yeah. Indefinitely out. We don't know how long it's
Well,
going to be.
he's saying he'll be back after the bye, so that's week 5. I think they're on the bye this coming week.
Yeah, Jets are on bye this week. Jets and Niners.
He's targeting week 5. let's say he comes in week 5. Week 5, you're going to be poor because you've had all that time out. So week 6 before he's any good. Le'Veon Bell is carrying this team and he's getting nowhere with it. They're giving him like 70% of the touches and nothing. I've got him in my fantasy team.
Take Baz.
He got outscored this week by Royce Freeman. Also in my fantasy
You
team.
love Royce Freeman.
I do now.
Well, he can't do it all on his own. You know, you've got to have. You know, I don't think the wide receiver core at the Jets has ever been anything good. You know, I thought Crowder was terrible at the Skins, and I think that Robbie Anderson can't catch. So I don't really know why he's not playing cornerback, because that's what happens. Wide receivers that can't catch in college get turned into cornerbacks. So I don't know why he's playing on the wrong side of the ball, because the guy can't catch. So it doesn't really matter what quarterback you have there, I don't think, because they can't catch the ball. They can't get separation. And all the teams know that whether it's a short pitch or a short throw to Bell or give it to Bell to try and get to the outside, the ball is going to Bell 70% of the time. It's, you know, and they're always playing catch up. You know, their defense could be okay, but it keeps getting beaten up. I think they're in a really difficult place, and I think they're going to get to mid-season with not a lot to play for.
Yeah, I couldn't agree more. I'm shocked by just how bad they are. I think Adam Gase is going to be one and done. I know it's not all on him, but he doesn't look like he's inspiring the team to do anything at all. He didn't. I never understood the appointment anyway. He couldn't win in the division when he was at the Dolphins, and he wasn't a good head coach there. So I'm not really sure why the Jets picked him up. I said this in the off season, and I've seen nothing out of him so far. The usage of the players is bizarre. It just
Does he get leeway because he'll just say, well, yeah, but Darnold is out with
Do you think
Monoff?
Do you think the Jets would have beaten the Patriots with Darnold under center?
No, but they might have been less.
That's a bit of a harsh question, isn't it? You know, because
if
you know how many teams have beat the Patriots in the last 2 years. There's probably only 4 or 5 teams that have actually.
But that's
beat
what he's
the
there
Patriots.
for, though, right?
Gase got 11 more points than the Steelers.
But this is the Jets. You know, like they have been terrible for years.
They have, but this is the perception they're trying to change. They need to be progressing, and how much progress are you expecting under a man who already failed to progress in the same division with the Dolphins?
They've already been destroyed by the Bills this year. So,
Exactly.
what? Then go up against the Super Bowl champions.
You're playing the Super Bowl champions, whose defensive play caller is their long-term head coach, who was also one of the best defensive coordinators of all time.
Mm-hmm.
So that's a great team, greatly
I'm
coached in defense.
I'm actually surprised they didn't lose by more.
Yeah, well, as am I. Like, I didn't expect it would be this close, but
It was only that close because the Patriots made some mistakes.
Yeah. Which is usually what we pounce on other teams doing. But with regards to mistake, we'll talk about the Antonio Brown situation. So Brown played one game, caught one touchdown, had 40 or 50 yards, and was immediately cut.
There's no mistake there. He caught a touchdown, helped you win a game.
The mistake,
Pay him before the guarantee.
mistake was you've got to know that this is coming before you sign him. You cannot sign a player and then find out there are further
Do you
allegations.
think Belichick cares?
Yeah, I think he does, because I think half the teams in the league.
I did see a video of a reporter getting a very, very evil stare off Belichick.
Yeah, I can't think what her name is.
That was really unprofessional.
It wasn't good.
It's not good.
a bad
and I know
look.
we laugh at him, and and we call him this grumpy old man, and he gets away with all these different things. But he does seem to be quite a horrid person.
When you see the NFL film stuff,
I'm allowed to say that, John.
You see like the NFL 100 stuff. You see him interviewed, and like there's all those documentaries they have on the Sky for the NFL, isn't there?
Yeah. American Life.
He comes across quite a nice guy on those.
I think he has what they call game face, and when he's in that mode, it doesn't matter who you are or what question you ask. That is the response. It is unprofessional. I saw it and I was uncomfortable.
I was waiting for a Me Too movement thing to come out saying how he intimidated
because
this
she
woman.
was
It awful.
perfectly within her rights to ask the Antonio Brown question. The only, and it is a fractional defence, but the only defence is apparently all the reporters were told beforehand, if you ask about Antonio Brown, Coach Belichick will not answer your question.
And he'll just stare at you
and that's all
with
he
a
did.
death stare for 10 seconds.
That was unnecessary. I absolutely agree. I don't think there's much
in an
defending it at all.
intimidatory way to a woman.
The Jets haven't been 0-3 since
journalists.
2003.
Wow.
I wouldn't have ever guessed that. 0-3, not since 2003.
They've always sprinkled a little bit of hope.
Not this year.
But journalists should be allowed to ask. Don't care if the press people come out and say he's not going to. He should be able to. They should be able to ask these questions. It's all over the bloody news, the front and the back pages.
But this is a Jets team that had, when they had Chad Pennington, Sanchez for a while, and they had Brandon Marshall as a 1,500-yard receiver. They weren't a bad team.
No, they had a good year with Ryan Fitzpatrick as well.
Yeah.
They've been good. And this is the point. Under Adam Gase, they're supposed to be now pushing the Patriots.
They had Chris Ivory, didn't they?
Yeah.
Chris Ivory, Bilal Powell.
Matt
Good old-
Forte.
Yeah. So they've had,
All very average.
they've had all these good players. And
They've had
so
players.
far, 3 games in, all right, there's been some problems, but you're seeing nothing under an Adam Gase team to make you think that 10 games into the season it's going to look any better. Nothing.
I think it's going to be a slow burn. I think
it's going to be a burn.
First half against the Bills, they looked really good. Then the injuries hit. The defense was gone because they lost their 2 defensive acquisitions. So the defensive play calling had to change. Then the second game, obviously they lost Darnold. Third game they're playing who the fog. It's
a great name.
we can't judge this Jets team yet because we haven't seen it. We've seen it for a half and a half. Actually, they were pretty impressive.
You know,
So,
And that's against the second-ranked defense in the league last season.
Which once again was in week 1. So we can't say anything. We can't say we can't judge anything yet because we don't know. We've not seen it.
we've seen Adam Gase for 2 years at the Dolphins. He's poor. I will judge that. He is rubbish.
Let's get back to Antonio. Does Antonio Brown play again?
Not if anyone in the league's got sense, but someone will offer him a contract.
Because they're already saying multiple teams are showing an interest.
Someone will. Someone will want a receiver, want an impact player. They will offer him a contract, and this will bite him again because, I mean, what did he tweet out? I don't use the tweeter, but
He tweeted about Kraft and his
yeah.
parlour.
Big Ben.
Shannon Sharp.
Shannon Sharp.
Basically, anyone who's ever done anything wrong and hasn't been taken to prison for it, he's called out. And yet, at the same time, he's saying, I didn't do all these things and I'm innocent. Well, you've just aligned yourself with a load of people who probably aren't entirely innocent of the things they've done. So I'm not sure this was a good look for him. I don't think anybody should be looking to pick him up. He's just trouble.
Yeah.
But I get the feeling he might turn up in the playoffs. I just get this feeling. Someone like the Chiefs, they do not, care about. Do they care about morals? Yeah,
They pay them guaranteed.
They got rid of
Not
Kareem
not
Hunt,
since
didn't
they
they?
got burnt by
Tyreek Hill and Antonio Brown on the same team.
Well, would you put it past him if they get to the playoffs and he's gone through any ban?
I don't think Andy Reid would stand for it. I think the team would consider it, but I think Andy Reid would say, I don't need that distraction.
He'll turn up somewhere in the playoffs.
I'm not sure. I think there's more chance of Gronk turning up in the playoffs than Antonio Brown. I think he's just burnt all his bridges.
God forbid he knelt.
Players who didn't turn up for the Patriots, though, James White, who was given the game off because his wife was giving birth.
Yeah.
And they seemed fairly confident to move on without one of their best players, and so it was. Rex Burkhead had a really good game just instead, and this is the problem with the Patriots running backs, is you never know who's going to have a good game. Sonny Michel seems to score every game and does nothing else. Just gets a 5-yard touchdown and that's
Gets
it.
me 10 points.
Yeah. But it was good. I thought Burkhead played really well, and this Patriots team do look scarily good. You get the feeling there's another 2 or 3 years in there.
No, I'm hoping usually the Patriots are crap at the beginning of the year. I'm hoping if they're good at the beginning this year, they'll fall off a cliff. That's the hope.
That's the hope, is it?
And I'm sticking to it.
Oh, well,
Everybody's hope.
I think you
Yeah.
need to stick to it. I'm not sure. I mean, they didn't look overly stressed. I know the backup through the interception, which was returned
we
for
won't
6
see
points.
him again then.
Well, that's the thing. So I don't understand why Brady was then brought back in. Leave the guy out there to learn. You don't expose a 42-year-old quarterback to more damage if you don't have to, if you're winning the game. It seems like bad. It seems like an odd decision from a.
It's bad management.
I would say so. It seems
I'd
like
say-
bad management.
I'm gonna say Belichick, you messed up there, mate.
Oh, I would agree.
And he'd look at me and just stare.
He's still staring at you now.
Should we move on to Antonio Brown's former team?
Oh
the
yeah,
Steelers.
former team. Yeah, there was that stay at
There was-
Oakland.
I mean, technically, he was an Oakland player.
Uh-huh.
So the Steelers started Mason Rudolph for the first time, but they fell to 0-3 going down against the 49ers.
Yep. So the first time since 1998 the Niners have started 3-0.
Is it really?
After the first time since 1979 we went 2-2 on the road
Oh, okay.
at the start of the season. So that was our first game at home, and then obviously we head into the byes. So we'll be heading into week 5 undefeated, obviously. So
Obviously.
it's all going to go wrong, basically. Jim's not here to tell me off. I suppose the concern for me, I'll start with the concerns before we talk about the good things. Concern for me is the amount we're turning over the ball. We should have been punished in the first quarter. Only being 6 points down after turning the ball over twice was quite unbelievable, if I'm honest. We turned it over with some pretty decent field position for the Steelers. It does show that our defence is finally starting to look like the defence that's had as much investment as it has had over the last 2 or 3 years. D Ford seems to be a very good addition. He's making a big difference. And some of our kind of younger players that are now 2 or 3 years into the season seem to be stepping up. DeForest Buckner looks amazing again. And we look like a proper defensive unit now, which is what kept us in the game early. And then I think after that, then Jimmy G, and the running game got moving, and then we're okay. But our game is all about the running game because Jimmy G wants that bit of extra time. He wants a lot of the time to play action. We've got to get that running game moving first. But we're in a very difficult division. It's starting to look like potentially the most difficult division in the league. I think the NFC West. You got the Rams at 3-0, the Niners at 3-0, and the Seahawks at 2-1. That is, and even the Cardinals look better under Kyler Murray. So it's starting to look like, especially for the top 3 teams, potentially the toughest division in the NFL.
Yeah. So I wrote while I was writing the running order out. Are they the worst 3-0 team this season? Just in terms of you haven't actually played well enough to deserve to be 3-0.
They're not.
They're not the worst 3-0 team.
I don't know if they're the worst, but I'm going to say the Cowboys have played the 3 worst teams in division in the NFL, and are 3-0, and no one seems to be questioning as much them as they are the 49ers. I'm yet to see they played a hopeless, I think that's a hopeless Giants team. They played Miami. I
think the Bills. I think you've got some teams up there that you'd expect to be 3-0. The Patriots, the Rams, the Chiefs, the Packers in a depleted division or against some depleted opposition. The Cowboys, like John says, have played some pretty poor teams, but this could be the year that the Cowboys make a sustained playoff run, I think, this year. So I think maybe not the worst, but one of the most surprising teams to be 3-0, them and the Bills, especially because they started on the road. But who we played? We played the Bucks. We've played, obviously, the Bengals, I believe.
Yep.
And then, obviously, and then the Steelers. But we did destroy the Bengals. The Bucks game away, but the Giants beat the Bucks away. So,
that's a Bengals team that came close to the Seahawks, and you destroyed them.
Yeah, so I think it's a surprise we're 3-0. I'm surprised. I'm pleasantly surprised. But it's not all about the offense, is it? Our running game's been superb and our defense has been good. Jimmy G needs a bit more time. Hopefully hopefully Jim's right, and hopefully by mid-season we'll be looking. We've got. It's just wide receiver. That is the area that really concerns me. I just don't think we've got enough talent. I think there's some decent talent, but there's not enough size. Too much has to go through Kittle.
Yeah, that's fair. This is the Steelers' first 0-3 start under Tomlin, isn't it?
Yeah.
And so we knew they weren't going to have Bell. We knew they weren't going to have Brown. Now they've lost Roethlisberger as well. The defense doesn't look up to the spec it has been over the last couple of years. There are very few positives coming out of the Steelers, and I was really thinking that Connor was going to have a good year, regardless of what else was going on, because he just looked good. And actually, nothing. It's just not working for him. I don't know whether it's the O-line. They don't look as competent as they've been in the past.
Possibly. He also looks injured, if you ask me.
You reckon?
I don't know. He doesn't.
Do you think it's pressure?
Possibly, but he just.
Yeah, weight of expectation is what he's
Yeah.
carrying, I think. They're trying to run everything through him. They want to establish the run so that they can bring the new wide receivers into it. And it's just not working. Mason Rudolph wasn't awful. The game, the box score, the stats don't reflect what he did. He's been thrown in, and I thought he did a reasonable job. I don't think you can ask for too much more out of a third or fourth round quarterback. And given the rest of the season, if that's what they elect to do, I think he'll get some good results for the team. He's got a huge arm on him when he gets going. Now, last week we were talking about the trade for Minkah Fitzpatrick. Couldn't have had a better game to start as a starter.
Well, until the weapon put him on his arse.
Oh, well, all right. Yeah, he got thrown on the floor, but blimey.
It was nearly as good as Vance McDonald's last year, wasn't it? It was just get down,
nothing will
bitch,
be ever
get
that
down.
good.
The weapon was he was effective this weekend. Oh,
He was an
great.
effective weapon.
Well, that could be somebody's nickname.
He had a couple
It's got to be, isn't it?
He had a couple of huge plays.
Kyle the effective weapon.
Yeah, I mean, but Fitzpatrick had an intercepted pass in the first quarter and then forced a fumble off Raheem Mostert in the red zone in the second quarter.
And that was a hell of that was a great fumble.
Yeah.
So some of those interceptions, though, they're on the receivers. They were not badly thrown passes. They just bounced straight out of their hands, and that's why I keep saying wide receiver. That is the issue. And if Antonio Brown can prove his innocence, there could still be a place in the bay for him, because the 49ers were still big favourites to sign him in the off season. I wouldn't be surprised if he turns up at the Niners.
I would be shocked if he turns up at the Niners. So where I was going with that, by the way, was the last Steeler to have an interception and a forced fumble in the opening half of a game was 2008. Was James Harrison. If you get that sort of career out of Minkah Fitzpatrick, then no one will blink at what you gave up to get him, because that will be an amazing addition. Unfortunately,
can we get some weightlifting videos from Minkah Fitzpatrick now?
Unfortunately, the rest of the defence is not stepping up. They just don't look as good as they have done in the past, and this is not
TJ Watt
time.
looked all right.
TJ Watt looks fine.
Yeah, this is not a time for them to the defence needs to be excellent for the offence to have enough now.
Which Devin did they get in the draft?
Bush.
Thank you. He looks decent from what I see as well.
Yeah, he recovered the forced fumble. He's played really well. He's got quite a lot of tackles already. He's racking them up. They're just the secondary is just not very good, and that's why they wanted Fitzpatrick. If he could play, well, he can play all the positions, but if he could play them all at the same time, they'd be all right.
Well, the Lions beat the Eagles to remain undefeated. Matt Patricia has his team fighting hard. Should we be considering them in the playoff hunt? And are the Eagle injury woes going to make it hard to keep up with the Cowboys in the NFC East?
I think the answer to both of these questions is yes. I think Jim was right. He said Matt Patricia will get the Lions playing his way once he's got more of his guys in the building, and it seems to be. They should be 3-0. Don't forget, they threw away that opening day game against the Cardinals. They were like 2 scores up with 3 or 4 minutes to go. They should be 3-0. They're 2-1-0, which is just an odd. Or how do they put
2-0-1.
it? 2-0-1. It's an odd. I don't like it. You just get a result. But anyway, you've got to. You've got to consider them in the mix at the moment.
No.
No.
I'm going to be the contrarian this time.
Go on then.
The Bears and the Packers are better and will be consistently better throughout the season. They're doing okay. But they're not going to be in the mix come the end of it.
We are going to get on to the Bears in a little while.
I've just seen who the Lions have got this week.
They're playing.
Please don't say the Dolphins.
They're playing the Chiefs.
They're playing the Chiefs. So there'll be 2 1-on-1.
Yes, they probably will. They're clearly not a great team, but they are outperforming my expectations. And Stafford seems to have a lot of time to throw the ball. The O-line's working well. They are sharing the load around at running back. They still haven't got Kerryon Johnson up to speed, but the potential is there. And the special teams turned up in a big way this week. Jamal Agnew's 100-yard kickoff return touchdown.
I think Stafford's now got some weapons out there, hasn't he? So he's got Golladay, Gallup,
Marvin Jones.
Marvin Jones Jr.
Gallup?
Is it Gallup?
Gallup's at the Cowboys.
Cowboys, sorry, yeah.
It's Marvin Jones
Yeah.
is the red zone threat, really. And I like everything that they are doing off. So Hawkinson as well. They should be getting more out of Hawkinson. But, generally speaking, after 3 games, I can't find a lot to fault about them. They're hanging around with teams. They have the hardest schedule, but at the same time, no one was expecting anything out of them. So I don't think teams are planning for their game with the Lions. They're thinking, oh, well, turn up, play the Lions. They were bad last year. What did they get last year? 6-10?
Yeah.
You know, it was nothing impressive. The previous coach got fired after back-to-back 9 and 7 seasons, and I couldn't for the life of me see why, and I thought Patricia would be out this year at the end of the season. If he gets them to 8-8 or better, they will keep him.
I think it's a really difficult division to judge.
Yeah.
I think, you know, you've got the Vikings, the Bears, the Packers, the Lions. They've all got good aspects about them, but there's none of those teams. I don't even think the Packers can go deep into the playoffs. So, you know, the Vikings, if they can be the Vikings of 2 years ago, maybe, but it's just difficult to pick, you know, are you going to get 2 teams out of that division? Because if you're not going to get 2 teams out of the division, then you're unlikely to get the Lions into the playoffs. I don't think they'll win that division.
No, I think wild card is where they'd be looking to get in the playoffs, and whether or not you'll get that, I really can't say. I was looking just at the quarterbacks of these 4 teams. I think I know how this conversation is going to go, but I would say to start this season, Rodgers and Stafford are on a par, and I would take either of them over the other 2. I would take either of them over Cousins and Trubisky now.
Oh, I agree with you. I take either of them over Cousins and Trubisky, but the Bears are too good a team everywhere else.
Yeah, when you look at the NFC, you got the Rams. You'd expect them to make the playoffs.
Mm-hmm.
The Packers, you probably expect them to make the playoffs after a 3-0 start if Rodgers stays fit.
Yeah.
The Cowboys with Zeke fit, Dak's playing much better. You'd expect them to make the playoffs. The Saints, you would have expected them to make the playoffs. Now slightly up in the air. You got the 49ers. I don't think they'll probably make the playoffs. And then you've got the Bears, the Seahawks, the Eagles. It's very hard to see the Lions getting a wild card spot in the NFC. I just think there's too much depth there. I think it might come a year too early. I think they might be a couple of games short.
Fair enough, but if they get within that game or 2, Patricia's job is safe, and you would imagine they will keep moving forward. You were saying earlier 3 games is not enough to judge a team by, but this is one of the teams that stands out to me because they are so much better than I thought they would be.
Oh.
I thought this was going to be 0-3.
Oh, I'm not taking anything away from them. They're playing very well after 3 games, but at the same time, they're not good enough.
So their opponents were the Eagles. The Eagles are decimated by injury again. Their top 2 receivers were out, so Alshon Jeffrey and Deshaun Jackson. And the rest of the receivers appear to be suffering from stone hands. Arcega Whiteside and Nelson Aguilar have got 6 drops between them.
So this is the other thing. The Eagles should have won this game because
Yes, they
Aguilar dropped
Yeah.
an easy catch. You know, he was completely open for the winning touchdown. So the Lions should have lost it. I know they didn't, so you can say coulda, shoulda, woulda, but you know they should have lost this game. Obviously, I don't think they've invested enough at running back. I think, especially with Wentz and his injury issues that he has. And then I think they've got some talent at wide receiver. They just need to keep them fit. You know, if you're going to play with your wide receiver 3 and 4, then you're going to get errors, aren't you? That's why they're paid as wide receiver 3 and 4. That's the issue you've got. I'm just not quite as sold on Wentz as, I know he's coming back from injury, but
he's always coming back.
Yeah,
from injury.
I'm just not quite as sold as the hype was 2 years ago. I'm just not quite as sold as some people.
I'm sold on the talent. I'm not sold on the durability, and that is a problem with the whole Eagles team. I'm sold on the talent. I'm not sold on the durability. When they're all playing well, we know that they're a Super Bowl winning team because they are, and we know the coach is good enough because he is. They've proved it. But there seems to be just a rash of problems that go through with injuries in this team, and you can only overcome that so many times. And this, for me, it's just waiting for Wentz to get injured. That is what this team is just lacking at the moment, is the inevitable Wentz injury. And that is why it's difficult to put your faith in them. The Cowboys are running away at the top of this division, or they should run away, at the top of this division. They're not yet. We're only 3 games in. Because I don't see the Eagles being able to match them man for man because they haven't got the depth in the squad.
The thing that goes in the Eagles' favour is they've got to play the Skins.
Yeah.
Again.
Mm-hmm.
They've got to play the Giants twice. There's 3 wins.
Yep. This week they play the Packers. Not a great time to be playing the Packers, who look pretty decent, at least defensively.
Yeah, I mean, they need to be getting so much more out of their running game.
Although Cowboys face the Saints, you know.
For the Eagles to be successful, they need to get more out of this running game. It's not. There's no standout player.
No.
They drafted Saunders. All right, he looks like an NFL running back, but he's not blowing teams away. Jordan Howard, I expected him to carry the load early in the season, and they don't seem committed to him. And Darren Sproles, I mean, he played really well at the weekend for virtually nothing because his biggest gains were wiped out by offensive pass interference. And he's a part-time gadget player, but they don't seem to be getting the best out of him at the moment when he's on the field. So then you're pinning everything on Wentz.
Where's the increase from Corey Clement and Wendell Smallwood?
Well, that's my point. There isn't one. The backfield before, whilst it was crowded, you were getting something out of all those players, and now it's like you've got 2 or 3 players who all want to be the lead back, and they're not functioning in this rotary system.
I said it last week, and I say it again. They won the Super Bowl in spite of their running back situation, and it's not improved. And I had Jordan Howard in fantasy last year, and I was convinced that the Bears were misusing him because he really flattered to deceive last year, and actually maybe he just isn't good enough.
No, maybe
because he's moved on to Eagles and he's getting exactly the same results there. I don't think he is the RB1 that they need. They need a bell cow right now to have a running game rather than just lots of personalities out there who are not good enough. They need
Gordon.
Melvin. They need Melvin Gordon, a type like that.
Yeah, they do. Someone to lean on.
It's whether they can
every
afford
down.
him.
Yeah, I don't think they can.
McCoy. They should have gone for McCoy.
Well, so many teams are regretting not that. Now he's playing quite well for the Chiefs. The no call on Miles Saunders getting his head turned the wrong way around. Did you all see this?
Wow.
Disgusting.
How of all the things that are called and all the ridiculous flags that are thrown, how was that not?
Very lucky the helmet came off.
Yeah.
Well, it was that or his head was coming off.
Oh, yeah, that's what I mean. It could have been extremely serious. Yeah.
I cannot believe that they didn't call that, and I hope someone is getting in trouble. Someone should be suspended for a game over that, because you cannot let that go when all we're seeing the rest of the time is flags for nothing. Flags that you don't want to see. Even Tom Brady has come out, didn't he? Come out last week and said that this is unwatchable with all the flags on the Thursday night game.
Yeah.
And that's a guy who likes the protection of random flags being thrown.
The best part of my weekend was Brady's overreaction to a flag being thrown for intentional grounding.
It was ridiculous, though. The defensive player did bat the ball down.
I'll try and get you the sound of this, Jim.
It was. He screeched at the official. It was it was quite something.
Scott Hansen went back to it on Red Zone.
Oh, really?
Yeah, they showed it again and again. It was quite impressive. I don't know what the Eagles' cornerback situation is with Ronald Darby injuring his hamstring in the game. I don't know. I haven't seen how long he's out for. And Andre Dillard, the left tackle, also left the game in the first half with a knee issue. They cannot afford these problems, and this is what's going to derail the Eagles team if they're not going to make the playoffs.
Darby's to miss a few games. That's all they're saying.
Oh, okay. Well, a few. That's very helpful.
Well, sorry. Should we move on?
Yeah.
To,
well, you should. Yeah.
Patrick Mahomes,
Reigning MVP, Patrick Mahomes.
Yeah. Shows no sign of regression, does he?
No.
He's not really on a down year.
Not yet. No.
Tore up the Ravens in a great game on Sunday night. The Chiefs winning 33-28, setting a league record for 25 points plus in 24 straight games in the process.
So yeah, you can't fault that, really, can you?
It's one of these people that you expected some sort of drop. He's lost Tyreek Hill. It won't be the same. Oh no, he's still slinging it all over the place.
Well, this was his 14th game of multiple touchdowns, wasn't it? And do you know what the record is?
15?
It is 15, held by a certain
Shawarma.
Peyton Manning.
Okay, no, I didn't know that.
And
I know
how many
beaten one of
games do we
Shawarma's
think that this is going to be beaten by?
Yeah,
'Cause the guy just looks ridiculous.
yeah, you got to say basically it's going to be on him when it ends. He seems to be able to throw them at will. It's impressive. I'm really impressed by Hardman, the receiver that stepped into the Tyreek Hill slot,
And Darrell Williams.
Yep, and everybody seems to be stepping up. Even the defense now looks top 12, top 10 defense. If they can keep the defense operating in that area, I don't know how you stop this team. They're a better team than the Patriots if they play like this. Because once at the
They're
end
better
of
offensively.
the end of that AFC Championship game,
It'll be about game. When those two teams
Yeah.
meet, it'll be about game management.
Yeah.
It won't be about talent. It'll be about
management whether we can cheat.
Yeah, well, no, it'll just be about situational football, won't it? That'll be what it's about, and whether the brain of Belichick can stop this offense racking up points to allow the Patriots to stay close. That'll be what it's about. If the Patriots went 14-0 down in the first quarter against this Chiefs team, I think they'd lose. But if they can stay close till half time, I think they'd win. So
Yeah, that's
it's not like Belichick's got form of stopping Andy Reid.
Is there an obvious weakness on the Chiefs team? Has anyone seen an obvious weakness?
the secondary's not
No,
amazing. I think you can pass against them. I think that's when the Ravens started to have a bit more success, actually, when they stopped trying to run the ball. Lamar Jackson ran the ball more than he had done at the start of this game. It was only really in the fourth quarter where he started to pass the ball. And I do think they went into their shells a little bit rather than closing this game out a bit early. I think they tried to close this game out too early.
Yeah.
I think that's a lesson for them as well, because I think they, a team like the Ravens, and I get they're much better this year, but they came back at them quite strongly in that
the
last
Ravens
in that
dominated
fourth quarter.
everything except the score. They time of possession, plays, everything. They absolutely dominant if you just look at the stats, and yet they were
won
on
by
the
five
they
points.
were on the wrong end of the score. What it says to me is the Ravens are genuinely as good as they looked. The first 2 weeks they weren't playing anyone particularly special, but the Chiefs,
I think Ravens, they're going to quite simply win their division now.
I think absolutely they should walk
comfortably,
it. Yeah, and I never thought it would be that easy for them. Did we enjoy the onside kick?
Loved it.
That Justin Tucker
Took
twice.
Yeah, I was going to say he messed it up the first time.
bounced
didn't he?
back to him, didn't it?
It was quite clever because it meant that they
They
only
saved the
one
timeout,
second.
didn't they?
They saved a timeout. Yeah,
because
So-
it forced the Chiefs to take a fair catch by doing the drop kick, and therefore you save a timeout and the clock stops. It was very clever. Now, the reason I bring this up is not to say how clever the special teams coaching was there, but it's to say I wish to lament the death of the onside kick. I used to really look forward to the one game a week or 2 games a week with the onside kick and the mad scramble for the ball, and it just can't happen now because you can't take a running start. You can't be ahead of the ball once it's in the. There's nothing left in that play, and I think it's a real shame. They've got to either kill it completely and say we're just not doing this and have a different rule. The league that folded last year, what was that called?
AAF.
The AAF. They had once a game you could take a 4th and 15 play from your own 25-yard line. And if you converted that, you got to keep the ball. If you could take that in the last 2 minutes of either half, if you were behind in the game. And so maybe they need to come up with a new rule, because the onside kick was fun to watch, and now it's bland because there's a 5% chance of the offense actually recovering it. It's so many. It used to be something like 25%, and now it's 5% at most.
Yeah. Although, do you remember when the Titans kicked off their season with an onside kick?
Yes, I do, and that went very badly.
I think they probably do need to go for a bit more of an up and under rather than along the ground, because if you look at rugby and the restarts in rugby, they try and put a lot of height on the ball, don't they? And
They do.
and get time to get underneath the ball. So I think potentially there just needs to be a bit of a change. At the end of the day, the rules in NFL are pretty clear. Once you score, you give the ball back. So that's kind of how it works. If you're at the point where you are chasing a game, then I don't see why you should get some crazy advantage to try and do that just because we want to see it more fun. You're in that place because you've been behind. So
But ultimately, it is for entertainment purposes.
well, yeah.
No, it is. That is what it is for. There's no wow. It is. That is what it's for. That's why we all watch it. That's why it generates millions
I don't
of
watch for
sponsorship.
entertainment. I watch for solid foundations.
You don't want to see anything like that. You don't want any entertainment. Mark Ingram, He's had 14 rushing attempts in 3 games for 257 yards and 5
He
touchdowns.
is turning back the years. But he was amazing at the Saints in a twosome with Kamara, wasn't he? But he was a good player before then. Obviously he's always pretty jacked up. But he's a very
signing
good
for this team.
Yeah, well, you think last year it was Gus Edwards. Gus Edwards or Mark Ingram. Mark Ingram is a massive upgrade on Gus Edwards, who's hardly doing anything this year.
Well, yeah, he's not required to. And basically, this year's version of Kamara and Ingram is Ingram and Lamar Jackson, because Lamar Jackson is just as capable as taking off and running as Alvin Kamara was.
His juke move is straight out of Madden, isn't it? Quite frankly.
It's crazy. He just watched defenders' ankles snap.
And Ingram can cope with the workload as well.
Yeah.
That's the good thing for that team, is he can take pressure off Lamar Jackson.
Got plenty of juice.
Yeah, I mean, last year he only made 138 rushing attempts, so he was effectively saved for this season at the Ravens. That was half of what he was doing in the years before. So it's a great signing for the Ravens. I think they have shown enough to be considered a genuine playoff contender in a division where originally I thought they were going to struggle to make it.
Yeah, I think other teams have disappointed.
Yeah.
I think they've been better than expected, and other teams have, for varying reasons, been disappointed.
The thing I'm looking forward to is all the Ravens fans pinning their hopes on him tearing his ACL next week, and them getting like Blaine Gabbert for the rest of the season.
It's RG3, isn't it?
Yeah, it's just more of the same.
Yeah, but so RG3 will last, 30 seconds?
Yeah, I don't know who the third choice is. RG3 is the backup, I believe.
Well, let's move on to another close game. The Falcons at Colts, which was a 24-27 win for Indianapolis. Does Dan Quinn need to start writing his CV? And what is happening with Matt Ryan?
7 interceptions all of last season, Matt Ryan. He's on 6 already this season. Something is not clicking. Freeman, we said this last week, just doesn't look like the same player.
Such a bad fantasy draft, didn't you, John?
Yeah.
Connor instead of Zeke, and then you took Freeman as well. And you felt pretty good about yourself at the time, didn't you?
They are both RB1s, and neither of them is playing to potential. That's just
Freeman was better this week, but that's not a sign that Freeman's good again. It's just a sign that he's been circling the drain. Today, like this weekend, there was a sort of a hand clasping out, but it's awful. He's an RB2 at best, middling RB2.
Well, good thing Ito Smith's. Oh no,
he's injured.
He's injured. Yeah.
The Falcons is the biggest loss for them is Keanu Neal for the second year in a row. He's torn an ACL.
Great player.
And he's done for the season.
Horrible penalty as well, to give him a penalty for
removing his helmet while he was down injured.
Removing his helmet whilst he starts to cry because it was is it Achilles this one?
Yeah, it's ACL again. Yeah, that's what he did before. This potentially is the end of a career, because to come back again and again, it's just so hard. I had the Falcons tipped going all the way. I thought this was a really good team, and I don't know what it is on that offense that isn't clicking. I can see the defense. That's always hit and miss. They've got really good potential. But on the offense, this should be a really good offense.
The offense has been
struggled
shoddy
for
since
3
Shanahan's
years.
gone. Since Shanahan went, that team has been
Shonky. Yep. Stodgy. That is a great word. How you can be bad on offense with Julio Jones catching 150 yards a week.
Not only that, you've also got Calvin Ridley.
Mohamed Sanu.
You've got
Hooper.
You've got great players there, and it's anemic to
They've
watch.
become a very nothing team, haven't they? They really have. It's just such a surprise. Every year you think, they had the year with the Super Bowl hangover, but then you thought they'd bounce back from that, and they just haven't. They don't see. I think a lot of it might just be confidence that they just don't seem to be able to string results together. They're one of these teams that wins 2 games, loses 2 games, wins 2 games, loses 2 games. So I think a lot of it must be confidence.
With the Super Bowl hangover, they still got to the playoffs.
Do you know what they remind me of? They remind me of the Bengals from about 4 years ago. They've got a coach who's been there too long, an elite receiver, and Mohamed Sanu.
Yeah, that's a fair point. They need to be able to lean more on Austin Hooper, because he looked good. 6 catches, 66 yards, and 2 touchdowns. That's his first double touchdown game in his now 4 years.
I still don't think they throw the ball to Julio enough, actually.
No, I'd be inclined to agree with you because why are you not throwing to him on virtually every play?
There
But
were
Austin
certain
Hooper-
times he was open, and certainly when he's in single coverage, I'd still be throwing the ball to Julio.
yeah.
The guy's a beast, I don't know.
With reference to the Colts, though, Jacoby Brissett is doing more than enough, right? He completed his first 16 passes. Like, he may not ever be the reason that they win, but he isn't going to be the reason they lose, and that is all you need on a team that's been built to be as good as this.
It's a serviceable quarterback in a serviceable team. He's going to do okay.
Yeah, and like I say, okay is going to be enough. I think the O-line is doing a great job of keeping it upright. Has he been sacked twice this season, I think? Certainly once in this game. Not a lot. And he isn't having to... I thought he was going to do a lot of scrambling.
Well, that's because they invested in the O-line because they didn't want Andrew Luck to get ruined.
Yeah.
But they didn't realise that Andrew Luck was just going to run away, did they?
but
After
also-
I'm still
season-
bitter about that, but I don't get to
But
watch
also,
Andrew Luck
Brissett
anymore.
is dividing the
For
ball
now.
around really well. Because, Zach Pascal got almost as many yards as T.Y. Hilton. And the fantasy values haven't suffered for these players.
I'll tell you what, I think it was it Duncan that picked up T.Y. in the end? In the 4th or 5th round,
Lower.
after I was sat there saying,
Lower.
why is T.Y. still there? Well, I don't know why I said it out loud. But, T.Y. went way too late. His value dropped massively after Luck went, but he's still one of the top 10 wide receivers in the league, T.Y. Hilton.
Yeah, only he did aggravate that quad injury, didn't he? He went off for the second half.
Yeah.
Big ice pack. So you've got to
But
monitor
he has
that.
got
but
speed to burn, and he's got great hands.
see if he's any good on one leg. Vinatieri, 46-year-old Vinatieri, had missed 5 of 8 kicks coming into this game and made all 5, including the 49-yard field goal that
Well,
smashed the left upright before it went in.
Pot, innit?
Yeah.
But I thought he was going to miss that.
The first one was so
it
close.
Smashed the left upright and bounced in. And it just seemed to be the stroke of luck he needed. Pleased to see he hasn't retired.
Well, yeah.
Obviously not pleased that I dropped him from my fantasy team thinking he was going to retire and then he scored more points than the guy I picked up.
Who did you bring in?
Brett Maher of the Cowboys.
Fair enough.
Yeah, well, I thought he'd get some opportunities, but I wanted Vinatieri because I thought without Brissett they'd take more long-range field goals, and actually hasn't really gone that way anyway.
Sorry, well, should we
Make sure you choke on that as you go to
we quickly
speak.
mention Thursday night, Jags?
I think we should. So
Tetons.
the Jags Tetons, this was the game Brady tweeted to say was being ruined by flags.
I think most games featuring the Tetons are ruined.
Yeah, it seems to be that they are not able to build on that good start to the season, and they were beaten by the Gardner Minshew Roadshow.
Yeah, it did seem to be a bit kind of the Titans got. People think we're doing really well. Right, let's go out there and suck.
How
my beer.
How many more weeks before we see Ryan Tannehill? I'm going to keep
No.
chirping this. He's
No.
coming in.
No,
He is coming in.
no.
Week 7, week 8, somewhere around there, they will play Tannehill and see what they've got. Because if they are not at 500 by the middle of the season, in a division that they could be winning, should be right at the top of, they've got their starting quarterback, which is one up on Indianapolis and the Jags. Like, there's no excuse to not be making something out of this season. And I thought after 1 week, okay, they've got it together. The defense should be amazing. It's all right, but the offense is just...
Broncos this week, they'll go back to 500.
Maybe.
What's the what's the standout player on their defense?
On their defense. Oh.
Well, there you go. You can't tell me straight away,
Well-
can you?
Well, they've got several. They've got Logan Ryan,
They've got okay players.
Malcolm Butler.
They've got okay players.
They've got a really good
They'd
defense.
get into other teams, but
Their really good defense got me 1 point on fantasy.
Yeah, well,
The Ravens' really good defense got me 0 points, and I still won.
I
the
lost.
Bears got me 21 and I lost.
speaking of teams from the AFC South, the Texans beat the Chargers 27-20.
They're going to win the division.
Well, they look comfortably the best of the teams, but once again, this was the Chargers throwing things away because they were all over the Texans and they should have won this game. And it was another game where Gary gets to say Phillip Rivers choked because he walked off again with his head in his hands, having thrown the ball and not picked out the receiver. And it's
Of course he did. It's Phillip Rivers.
Yeah.
How many times do I have to say it? Like, I say it because it's true, and it happens all the fucking time.
it does seem to happen every week.
class
He
of
should
two-
just retire and just keep having babies.
Well, he's now the last
Go
one
and be a
standing
missionary or something.
from 2004,
I was
isn't
going
he?
to say the class of 2004 is dying. Let's watch him die slowly.
Deshaun Watson, though, 351 yards and 3 touchdowns. This is a fully grown quarterback now. He is.
He's elite.
All right. The O-line still isn't perfect. It's better with Tunsil, but he's still only one guy. But he's not getting hit as much, and he looks like he's got all the time in the world to scramble around and find himself someone to throw to. Bit like early Russell Wilson, before he settled into being a pocket passer. That's what Deshaun Watson looks like, and it's working. It's really working for him. Also, the Kenny Stills acquisition looks really good. Kenny Stills playing really well.
Still expensive.
It's still a virus.
But, okay, well, let's move on. The Broncos suck. They lost 16-27 to the Packers.
Right, done. Move on.
Yeah.
Is that it?
No,
I mean, I've got nothing more to say. The Broncos are awful.
Well, if we're upsetting Dunk, can I start a Bring Back Dom Capers campaign?
Well, I wasn't aiming to upset him this week.
Actually, the Packers' defense is really good. The offense really isn't. It seems like it's not
it's
clicking.
Slow progress, I think. The Marquez Valdez-Scantling, 99 yards and a touchdown. I mean, the touchdown pass was good. Rodgers is doing enough without it being explosive. This is what I said last. Apparently, this is what infuriated Duncan last week when I said he was just a glorified game manager now. He did text me about that.
Didn't you compare him to somebody?
I think it was Alex Smith.
Yeah.
Oh, the guy he was drafted below.
Yeah, that's him.
Yeah, that was
The guy he's worse than.
The thing I really want to concentrate on here is, what do we do about the Broncos? If you are if you are John Elway, what are you doing today to make your team better?
retire.
Sitting on a sun lounger with a big drink.
I absolutely think the Farrow brothers are right. I think John Elway has done a piss poor job of building this team. Philip Lindsay finally turned up this season. Royce Freeman even played okay, which is great. Let me just mention that again. But Joe Flacco is not going to lead you to any comeback wins. He is not capable of doing that. And you drafted a guy who isn't ready to play to be your backup quarterback. What kind of team building is that?
I'm not going to go too critical on the Broncos here.
Bradley Chubb and Von Miller still don't have a sack between them after 3 weeks.
I'm not going to go too critical on them. This Packers team is looking decent. And one of the things I like about this Packers team is I don't think the Packers have had a good running game since big old Eddie Lacy was there.
Feast mode.
Feast mode.
Yeah.
It looks like they've got a decent running game now.
Yeah.
Well, Aaron Jones ran in 2 short touchdowns, but he didn't do much else.
Yeah, he wasn't asked to, but they seem
how
to
many yards did he run for? About 40.
Yeah, not many.
And about 20 of those were into the end zone.
They are trying to balance.
He didn't do much else.
I'm
not sure that's a really factual statement you've made there, Paul.
Was he doing that last season?
Well, yeah, a little bit. Yeah, he's okay in the red zone, but I don't think there's much else, round the pitch.
I think. Well,
Sorry, that's just what I think.
I think Packers.
That's why you're here.
Packers play the Eagles this week, so it seems a good time to be playing the Eagles. And then...
Do you know, this is the worst start for the Broncos since 99 when they lost Elway and their running back at the start of the season. Was it Terrell Owens tore an ACL and John Elway retired? This is the worst start for the Broncos since then. And I think if they don't get the defence working and they don't find a viable quarterback, this team is going to win no more than 3 or 4 games this season.
If that.
I cannot see it. They're a mess. And I think it's a real shame for Vic Fangio because I like him and he's done some great things in other teams where he's been defensive coordinator, but this is his big shot and there's nothing there for him to use.
Well, should we mention some other 0-3 teams?
I think we should. So you want to start with the Bengals?
Yeah, they lost.
They lost 17-21 to the Bills. It was...
The Bengals lost that in spite of themselves.
Yeah. Were the Bills not 17-0 up? And the Bengals pulled it back to 17-all and then contrived to lose the game. I still don't know what to make of this Bengals team. For the odd quarter, they look really good, and the rest of the time, they are a poor team.
Miss AJ Green, don't they?
Yeah,
they do. But
I just like that it got to the point. It got to it being close to being equal, and it just looked like the Bengals went, no, wait. Remember, we suck.
I tell you what, though. Every week now, I'm impressed by Josh Allen, quarterback at the Bills. He's still making the odd error, but he's now cut the errors to Brett Favre proportions, where they aren't outweighed by...
Wow.
No. I'm not saying he's Brett Favre. What I'm saying is Brett Favre made an error or two every week, but the good things outweighed the bad things. And that is where Josh Allen now is. The good things are outweighing the bad things, so you're not a drain on your team.
I think he's been all right for the
It's only
For
the third time in 26 years that the Bills are 3-0.
Oh yeah, but I don't think last year was on him at
No.
all. So I think he's all right. He seems to be improving as a second-year quarterback should be.
You want to talk about future Hall of Famer Frank Gore scoring again?
Not really.
1 yard touchdown run.
No.
Just building the legend. I cannot get.
I like the one where Rosen dropped the ball and then still managed to complete the pass.
Oh, the Dolphins. Yeah, well, yeah. So the Dolphins lost 31-6 to the Cowboys.
Did I just pull that out of nowhere? Sorry.
Well, no, it is next on the order, so you've clearly caught your eye. But you were too busy chatting in the background while we were.
Well, we were still arguing about Aaron.
I was showing him the stats.
Yeah, which shows that he's not got more than 800 yards
Get
in the
your
season.
stats out for the lads.
But it's showing me he's got 3 touchdowns already when he scored.
Yeah,
Nowhere
well,
near
I said
that
he could
after
run
3
in the end
games
zone.
before. So,
No one cares. It's Aaron Jones.
but I
I'm
think
talking about no one cares. The Dolphins.
The Dolphins lost again. The Cowboys had to do nothing. The Dolphins gave up 200-yard rushes in the same game because Sue Pollard and Zeke both got 100 yards. Wow, this Dolphins team are now the worst through 3 games since the 50s.
Not surprised.
It's terrible. We've discussed it before. It shouldn't be allowed. Josh Rosen looked okay, but looking okay throwing to who and what, I don't know.
this just makes Gruden look like a genius for what he did last year.
I just can't. I can't watch their games without being disgusted that they're allowed to play this badly. It's just not okay.
It's
They should be on
it's-
TV.
It's the fans I feel sorry for.
Yeah, as do I. I think that's enough talk about the Dolphins.
So the Browns continue to disappoint, losing 20-13 against the Rams. Would you argue the biggest issue is the coach?
Yes, the biggest issue is the coach.
The
He is
biggest
rubbish
issue is Baker Mayfield.
because of the coach.
He's got a terrible passer rating.
He has.
Did you know that Lamar Jackson could throw 8 interceptions in a row and still have a better passer rating than Baker Mayfield?
That's a great fact. I didn't know that. I did know that since he became a starter last year, he has now thrown the most interceptions out of anyone. It's not good, and it's because of the coach. He's not being used properly. He's running around behind the pocket to find somewhere that he can see to get the ball out. They're not targeting Odell Beckham enough, and they got rid of their best O-lineman in the offseason for Olivier Vernon, who hasn't racked up a sack in 3 games.
Well, the O-line sucks. That's why he's running.
Well, that's what I mean, but their best O-lineman was Kevin Zeitler,
Zeitler.
and they got rid of him.
Yeah.
And he was great for DJ.
Well, this is poor. The Browns are bad. The Rams are slowly working their way back from the Super Bowl hangover. The hangover is clearly there, but Cooper Kupp is, we have 11 receptions for 106 yards or something. Like, he's
think-
always open.
I think at this point as well, you've got to think the Rams are still a very, very good team.
Yes, they are. They are. And the Browns got within 7, but
Well, if you think about the Browns, I think the coach is poor, and they've invested loads of places, haven't they? You know, I think Njoku being injured is a problem for Baker. There's a lot of hype. I wonder how much of it he's believed because he's that sort of character.
all of it.
Yeah, and I think that's a massive issue.
I agree.
So I think it is the coach, it is Baker, and it's the O-line because the O-line is the weak link in that team, and that means Baker has to do crazy things, and which he believes he can do. You know,
Freddie Kitchens called a draw play on 4th and 9. The last time that happened was
it was about-
20 seasons ago.
I was going to say it was a long time ago.
20 seasons. Do you know what they think he did? They think he didn't realise it was 4th down. He got questioned after the game, and he said, no, I knew it was 4th down, but they think he thought they'd been offsetting penalties on the play before, and so it was still 3rd down.
Well, and the players couldn't work it out themselves.
Well,
with a big
the
fucking
players
screen.
The players just take the order and get on with it. But
They're in a stadium
with an
right?
enormous screen.
Yeah, with an enormous screen, yeah, where it says what's going on.
And
So
there's
you
that
think
guy
Baker
next to
couldn't
you.
work that out?
There's a guy next to you holding a big 4.
And this is the point. The coaching is a problem. I don't think he's got the capacity to coach the team, make the decisions, and watch all the other things you've got to do. There's definitely some sort of discrepancy there. It's not working for them.
Yeah.
The Browns they don't have to win every week, but they have to show that they're as good as all these pieces they've got. And how long is Beckham going to be happy in this team?
Not very long, I don't think.
And then you've got a problem for everybody else.
49ers this week. Good defense.
I don't think they've got the 49ers this week.
Oh no, week after. Sorry,
I was going to say.
they have they have the Ravens.
Yeah.
Yeah, see,
In a
that's
divisional
a divisional
game,
game.
yeah.
This is a problem for the Browns. They're off to a bad start. They're going to be probably 1-3. This is not going to be something that some of these players are going to put up with, and Beckham is going to be leading that charge. He's going to want to know, where are my targets towards the end of that game? The last 9 plays, how many targets? None. You can't bring him in and have him as your best receiver, who is your Julio Jones, and then not throw him the ball. You can't do that and expect to win many games. Anyway,
Rams-wise, what are they doing with Todd Gurley? They just do not seem to be able to get him going.
they're managing him, aren't they? They are winning.
Well, Sean
without
McVay's
winning
come
on
out and said that he needs to get more out of Gurley. He needs to find more room in the playbook for him because they are not utilising him. I think unless you get Gurley 80% back to where he was, I think that's a very diminished attack from the Rams.
I think they.
I think that makes the NFC West a very interesting division
it
for
does.
both the Seahawks and the Niners. I think the Rams are not as powerful as they were. They've still got great defense, but offensively, 20 points is not going to cut it against a lot of teams. I would be concerned about their offense at the moment. I know Kupp looks good, but I think there are other issues there.
Yeah, no.
I mean, defensively, they still looked relatively solid, didn't they?
Yeah, there's no problem with the Rams' defense. It's
the
just
defense
the
is
whole
fine.
the whole lot isn't moving along as smoothly. I mean, twice this season they failed to score touchdowns in the first half. That only happened once all of last season. Something isn't right in this team, and I'm sure they will fix it. McVay will fix it. But like Gary said, the division is much better than it looked originally. How long can you afford to not have it right for and still guarantee you're going to win that division?
Well, last year, Cardinals, that's 2 wins. Niners, 2 wins. That's 4 guaranteed wins pretty much last year. This year, you'd say they might win 50% of those games. Even going to the Cardinals in a divisional matchup with Kyler Murray, a few more games in, that's not going to just be a walkover.
No. Well, let's move on to the Vikings.
Speaking of walkovers,
the Vikings took care of the Raiders 34-14. Dalvin Cook, is he a top 3 running back?
Currently, yes.
he was number 1, I believe. He's the number 1 running back in terms of yards.
He reminds me of Kamara, the way he plays, the way he runs,
bounces off people.
The angles he picks. Very much reminds me of Kamara. That in that kind of mould, and obviously we had players like Geist that came out the same year that also got injured, but Dalvin Cook looks like the real talent that came out of that class, doesn't he?
Well, yeah, absolutely. What do we think about the passing game? Stephon Diggs really not really showing up this year, is he? It doesn't look good in terms of his stat line and his in-game performances. You're not getting that eye-popping ability that he should be showing. And,
for me, he's a bit of a Brandon Cooks type player. He gets decent yardage throughout an entire season, but he does tend to have big games and then be a little bit non-existent. He's not the biggest target to go after sometimes, especially when you've got Thielen and Rudolph, and then if you're going to increase the workload to Dalvin Cook. If you think about it, what was it last week? He threw for like 70 yards or whatever it was. There's not a lot of yards to go round if that's if you're going to give the ball to Dalvin Cook that much.
But what I'm getting at is we're 3 games in and he's got 6 receptions in 3 games. That's not good from what is a supposedly joint number 1 receiver. That's not sustainable.
I think that's more on just how the Vikings have ended up playing.
It's more on the fact they don't want to give Kirk Cousins that many throws.
I think it's partly Kirk Cousins and how they're managing him, but also the explosion of Dalvin Cook has led them into playing a certain way. Same thing happened at the Saints when Kamara, did what he did. It changes a franchise because, why would you stop doing what's working to risk throwing the ball? There is much less risk in running the ball. If it's working, you just stick with it, don't you?
Yeah, I think so. What else do you think Derek Carr can do to be a franchise quarterback for the Raiders? Because they
go to a different franchise.
Well, yeah, that's it. They're still talking about getting rid of him, but I'm not sure what else he could really have been doing. He's completing 70% of his passes this year, 500 yards and 2 touchdowns through the 3 games. He's got 2 interceptions. I don't know, in a team that's not full of talent, what more the guy is supposed to do. I don't think he's bad. I don't know that they're definitely going to find someone better in the draft. Do you?
It's a lot of it, isn't it? You don't know. I don't know why you take the risk.
And neither do I. It seems like a really strange thing to do. The Raiders just it's rudderless. There's no definitive, this is the plan.
No.
It's just throw darts at a board and see what happens. And I get the feeling it's going to be the same with the quarterback, and that's a real shame for me. Waller, the tight end, he looks good. He's having a really good start to the season. Other than that, there's not a lot of options, is there? That's what I'm getting at.
Not at all.
It's devoid of anything exciting. The Bears beat the Redskins 31-15. This is I included this here because it's another team that really handled business quite easily. But again, the Bears didn't have to do a lot. The Redskins threw them the game. Case Keenum was terrible. 5 turnovers, I think, on Keenum, including a 4th and 1 quarterback sneak like you do at the goal line where you go up and over, and he basically threw the ball into the head of the oncoming defensive lineman and watched it go behind him as he collapsed on the floor. The Redskins are hanging around for a half with the teams they're playing and then are showing their lack of talent. And the Bears are only winning when Matt Nagy schemes their receivers open because Trubisky can't hit anyone in a tight window. He hit Tariq Cohen 3 times open, and Tariq Cohen had 0 receptions coming into this game.
I'd like to see someone like Derek Carr in Chicago.
Well, you might do, because I don't think Trubisky's the answer there. I said last week I don't think he's a franchise quarterback, and I'll stick to it. They won easily, but it's not because of him. It's because of the coach.
So, Panthers and Saints, 2 backup quarterbacks here. NFC South, both won.
Yeah, they both won. Kyle Allen led the Panthers to a comfortable 38-20 win over the Cardinals, which is, hardly surprising. On balance, the Panthers should be easily beating the Cardinals. Kyle Allen threw more touchdown passes in this game than Cam's had in his last 4 games.
Have you seen the footage that's come out of a very young Kyle Allen telling Cam Newton he's going to replace him as the starting quarterback at the Panthers?
I have not seen that.
I will show you at the end. It is amazing.
Well, Jim sent me some thoughts, and I've not covered. I've sort of integrated what he sent me, but I've not covered a lot. But this was, he says, there is no way that there's a quarterback controversy here. It's not happening yet. You've got to have 3 or 4 more games. You can't just go on this. But I'm telling you, this is happening because Cam Newton isn't just going to miss this week and next week. They're going to rest him. He's not coming back straight away. And if Kyle Allen wins 3 or 4 games and he's putting up good numbers.
And you've got to remember, they've still got Will Greer, who I thought was top 10 talent in the draft.
yeah, that's why you're not a talent evaluator. Kyle Allen has won both his starts for the Panthers. He played Week 17 last year as well and won. And he just looks more able to find receivers than Cam does. Cam can't throw down the field.
They've got some good receivers in Carolina as well. Curtis Samuel, I think, is a cracking player.
Yeah, and that's it. But you wouldn't know it when Cam is not throwing to him.
Texans, then Jags for the upcoming games for the Panthers.
Both winnable.
Both losable.
Winnable.
Both losable.
Yeah, but both winnable, I would say. That's if they come out 1-1 through that, there's no guaranteeing that Cam is the right person to bring back in. He might benefit from the rest of the year off, is where I'm getting from this.
I thought that at one point that was the idea. He was going to get the whole year off.
Did you see what he was doing before the game as well? He was doing an Instagram modelling shoot as everyone was warming up. And I just don't think that's the right thing to do as the leader of your team.
I think the league has got a plan to kill off every starting quarterback. And this is just part and parcel of that.
So the other starting quarterback that we weren't expecting to see this early in the season is Teddy Bridgewater, who marched the Saints with a solid victory over Russell Wilson. Oh, and the Seahawks, they were also there, but mainly Russell Wilson. It was 33-27. Bridgewater did okay. They basically didn't ask him to do too much. He had 170 yards passing. The special teams had 2 touchdowns for the Saints in this game. It's a bit like I was saying earlier. Like with Brissett, Bridgewater just has to be the reason for them to not lose. He doesn't have to make them win, just don't make them lose, and that is good enough because Sean Payton will do the rest of the work for him.
It'd be good if you got Jared Cook more involved.
Yep.
Just for me.
Yep. I'll phone him.
Thank you.
When you're phoning him, can you tell Sean Payne to stop wearing those bloody gold trainers? He looks like a divorced dad on a bloody
Mardi Gras piss up.
Yeah, effectively. And I know Sean Payton is a divorced dad in New Orleans, but he just,
somebody in our league has Chris Carson as their running back. Anybody know who that is?
Perry?
I think it is Perry. He has 4 fumbles through the first 3 games. You cannot continue to be the lead running back in your team. Now, I know Richard Penny was out because he hurt himself in the warm-up, but Chris Carson...
Pro-size.
But he had like 5 yards.
McKissick.
I thought McKissick's at the Lions.
Yeah, I
now.
think.
maybe.
Yeah, I think he's gone. Chris Carson, this has got to be it, right? Like, you cannot keep doing this. You are going to get benched. Surely, you keep giving teams away. This is not sustainable. Is where I'm getting at. I like him, but you four fumbles in 3 games
They haven't had anyone decent since they had a fit Thomas Walls.
for both games.
They had a fat Eddie Lacy.
Yeah.
They did it, and that's what he's saying. They didn't have anyone decent.
Now, well, should we move on? I think it's time to for.
It's time for me to start breaking the joint because
Yeah.
I'm too fat.
It's time for us to do a quiz, which I'm going to come last at.
Yay! And Mike leaves the room.
It just runs.
I didn't want my script at the table for this because you guys can see. So, Paul did have some music lined up. I'm not sure how quick on the button he's going to be with this, but we're going to
if you want a YouTube advert, I'm your man.
we're going to play a game called Who Wants to Be a Manning-Heir? Mainly because it fits with the theme of the week, with the new quarterbacks coming in. We've got the inevitable YouTube ad. The production values on this are phenomenal. There's your there's your You Can't Sue Us YouTube music. Excellent. Thanks very much. Right. There's 7 questions. And
This is going to sound so great. Honestly.
I think so. I just want an A, B, C, or D from you as we go along, and I will ask you round the table so you don't all get to listen to one person's answers, Gary. So
I thought we agreed I could go last each time.
no, we didn't agree with that. All right. Who wants to be a Manning-Heir? Question 1. Drafted in 2018, which Manning-Heir marked his debut with 5 incompletions and an interception for his 6 attempts? Was it A. Kyle Lauletta, B. Kyle Allen, C. Kyle Orton, or D. Kylie Minogue? Paul.
I'm going to go with A. Kyle Lauletta.
I'm going to go with B.
Kyle Allen.
Kyle Lauletta.
It was A. Kyle Lauletta.
Gary looks nonplussed.
I don't think he cares, but I thought we'd do it anyway. Just keep hold of that idea about Kurt Warner from earlier that you had. Just keep hold of it.
Shawarma.
Kurt Shawarma. Question 2. Despite being on the Giants, Jets and Bills squad, which Manning-Heir has never played an NFL down? Is it A. Chad Kelly, B. Davis Webb, C. JP Lossman, or D. Christian Hackenberg? John.
Webb.
Paul.
B. Davis Webb.
Gary.
B.
It's a great shout. It is Davis Webb. I thought I'd get you in there for last. You'll be going first on this one. Number 3. Longtime Manning-Heir David Carr made his NFL debut with which team in 2002? Was it A, the Panthers, B, the Texans, C, the Jags, or D, the Browns? Gary.
I'm going to go with B.
Paul.
He was the number 1 overall pick in the 2002 draft for B.
John.
B.
I think there might be some cheating going on there. I heard the coughing. It's the first cough tonight. It hasn't come out of Gary's mouth. Which Manning-Heir has a TD to INT ratio of 29 to 36, broke his jaw on a teammate's fist, and has the middle name Cyril? Is it A, Geno Smith, B, Gino Ginelli, C, Mark Sanchez, or D, Torrey Smith?
Can I go with Gino Smith?
Geno Smith? Paul?
Geno Smith.
Gary?
A.
It is A, Gino Cyril
Gino
Smith.
Ginelli.
I knew that as well.
Well done.
You knew it wasn't a brand of ice cream.
It's from the 90s. They used to come round in like a van, didn't they? In like,
Yeah.
like
Do you
a
wanna do-
frozen van.
Do you want to do the song? 'Cause it did it.
Gino Ginelli.
You do. Number 5, Manning-Heir Daniel Jones played with which college team? Was it A, Baylor, B, Ohio, C, Duke, or D, LSU? Gary?
C.
Paul?
Duke.
John?
Duke.
He's not good enough to come out of LSU.
Well, that's very true, yes. You're all doing very well. Gary, you're just 1 point behind here.
I don't care.
I know you don't. Which of the following has never been a Manning-Heir? Is it A, Alex Wright, B, Tim Hasselback, C, Alex Tanney, or D, Bryce Petty? John?
D.
Paul?
D.
I was going with D just because we haven't had a D yet.
Yeah.
And it is D, Bryce Petty. And finally, I'm sure you'll be relieved to know,
Kurt Warmer.
which Manning-Heir was a Giants player for 4 years, became an indoor football legend, and passed away in 2019? Was it A, Jared Lorenzen, B, Jared Leto, C, Jared Rebecki, or D, Jared Mayo? Gary.
D.
Paul.
Jared Lorenzen.
John.
C.
Jared Rebecki. Toadfish. Toadfish from Neighbours.
I forgot which ones they were, so I just went with
I knew it wasn't B or C. I just guessed out the
D.
other two.
Jared Mayo. He was a linebacker for the Patriots. And it was A. Jared Lorenzen, the hefty lefty, 300-odd pound quarterback that died of massive heart failure.
yeah, I remember that.
Paul, you are the winner of Who Wants to Be a Manning-Heir. Diddle-diddle-diddle-doo. Well done, everyone. That was a quick little quiz to sail through there. I'm sure Jim will be enjoying that playing at home with his Smirnoff Ices and his half marathon.
Yeah. So, Gary, do you want to take us through some fantasy?
Yes, it's quite brief this week. Obviously, it's still quite early in the season, so we are into the first round of bye weeks. But there's
Who's on a bye? Jets.
Just the Jets and Niners.
Jets
so
and
it's a bit of a
Niners.
random one week.
There
4.
shouldn't be that many fantasy players missing then.
Unless you're playing. I'm playing somebody in my other league who has got 7 Jets and Niners players. Somehow I think they're 1 and 2, so they've managed to win one game with that
Wow.
many Jets players. They're not even particularly good Jets and Niners
Even the
players.
Jets haven't won that many games with that number of Jets players.
No, well, they don't even have Jimmy G or anything. So, but yeah, so nothing major on the bye weeks. That shouldn't really cause you any issues if you have got some Niners players that I've told you to pick up at wide receiver or especially at running back. You should have plenty on your bench to cover them out this week. So no majors. Shouldn't need to lose much on the waivers to have a full team. So I had a quick look at some of the key people to probably look at starting this week. So Jack Doyle is one I'd look to start at tight end. He's only owned in about 19% of leagues. Tight end's been quite a difficult position outside the top 5 to pick so far this year. Starting to get a bit of chemistry going with Jacoby Brissett. So. And they're playing the Raiders, who look pretty poor. So that's quite a good pickup. Tyler Lockett's had a bit of a quiet start to the year, but the Seahawks are playing the Cardinals, and they've got a pretty shot secondary. So I'd expect him to have some strong scores this week. So again, somebody that you want to make sure you're starting. Potentially he's been around your flex position, but if he is, make sure you start him this week. And then the last one, so Perry's going to love this because this guy's had a great start to the season, and it's only going to get better this week, which is Austin Eckler versus the Dolphins. He is going to absolutely rip that up. I know the Cowboys made hard work of it for a quarter and a half, but that Dolphins team is still pretty terrible. In terms of players that I don't fancy this week that you should be looking to certainly...
It's my turn to have my computer talk to me. I'm sorry.
Certainly to sit or potentially move away from. So Chris Godwin, I've not really been a big supporter of that pick all season. I don't really get it. They're playing the Rams. I don't think he's going to get much joy. David Montgomery, not one to trade away from yet. I'd certainly keep him on your bench, but he's certainly feeling his way into the league. He hasn't kind of really come in and kind of made a massive explosive difference to that Bears team. He's got lots of talent. He was expected to do big things. A lot of people picked him quite early. But this week they play the Vikings, and that doesn't look like a favourable matchup for Montgomery. So certainly, again, if he's around your flex position, if you've got a couple of other good running backs, don't play him. And the last one for me would be Vance McDonald, a poor tight end who just isn't getting much action, not getting tired. I don't think that he's going to get you some great points. They're playing the Bengals. I think it's going to be a pretty low-scoring and pretty poor quality game, and I just don't think that he's going to get enough targets to get many points. So yeah, a few players there that you might have been considering dropping or playing. So that would be my fantasy advice this week.
From somebody who's 0-3, can I give some fantasy advice?
Give up. You're 0-3 already.
That's right.
Did you draft Saquon?
At number 1, yeah.
Yeah. So your season's not going to be the best.
Do you want to hit me up for a trade?
I'd let you know. One of my tight ends scored 0.00 this week. And they played Jimmy Graham.
Oh.
Yeah, well, Jimmy Graham's a spent force, so that was a bad choice.
So was Jared Cook. Got me 1.2.
And look, Jared Cook had a great year last year when there was not much else at the Raiders. I think he is a very good player, but without Breeze, And when you've got a player like Kamara, you just lose value. Michael Thomas is not having the year that you'd want him to have either. So, there's been more injuries to key quarterbacks this year than in the last few years, and it's affecting the value. Somebody in our league left Juju on the bench this week, which was just madness. I just don't understand that. The Steelers have very little else. Why you would leave Juju on the bench? He still brought in 15, 16 points. Crazy. I think you're a complete moron if you left Juju on the bench.
How many points did Perry lose by to me in the end? Was it 5?
I'm sure Juju might have been enough.
I think Juju would have been enough.
Good. Well, thank you for listening to the Snap UK podcast. Come find us on social media. Join in and help us shape the show. If you're listening on Apple Podcasts, of course, we appreciate your 5-star reviews. Leave us a review wherever you are listening, and make sure that you join us next week for our first power rankings of 2019.
It's that time already.
Ooh. And can I do a quiz next week?
Yeah, it's your turn again if you
Sweet.
make it better than mine. Whatever you do.
I've already got it in my head.
But if you can shoehorn Jared Rebecki into your quiz, I'd be delighted.
Toadfish.
Toadfish.
I'd rather have a question around who killed Steve Irwin, because it was definitely Stingray from Neighbours.
End strong.
You started the Neighbours, normally.
I've never watched Neighbours. But anyway, until next week, it's goodbye from us. Cheers.